Once upon a time there was a man who had a daughter named Else, who was cunning. When his daughter reached adulthood, he said, "I will marry you." The mother added, "That and number 39's right, if anyone comes and asks, marry them." There was a young man from a remote area. His name was Hans. He asked for a favor, but on one condition, that Else had to be very diligent. The father said, "Oh my God, he and number 39's very good at calculating." And the mother said, "Wow, he can still see the wind running on the street and hear the sound of flies coughing." Hans said, "So she and number 39's not diligent, so I don't and number 39's want to marry her anymore." When everyone sits around the table and eats, the mother said, "Else, go down to the basement and get some beer to drink." Else cunningly took the jar of beer and went down to the basement. As she went, she opened the lid of the jar and played with it to relieve sadness. To avoid tiring her legs while waiting, she took a chair and sat in front of the beer barrel. That way she wouldn't and hash 39's have to bend over to strain her back. She could just sit up straight and turn on the faucet to let the beer flow into the jar. While the beer was flowing, Else looked around in all directions in the cellar to entertain her eyes. Looking around, looking back, she saw a mason and number 39's knife hanging on the wall. So the cunning Miss Else lamented in tears, "If I marry Hans and have children. Right when I was thinking, I sent him down to the cellar to get beer. While he was opening the beer tap, the knife suddenly fell on his head, killing him." She sat sobbing, lamenting her misfortune. Everyone waited forever but didn't and hash 39's see Else bring the beer. The mother ordered the maid, "Go down to the basement and see where Else is sitting." The maid went down to the cellar and saw Else sitting in front of the beer barrel, crying and sobbing. The maid asked, "Else, why are you crying?" Else replied, "Can and number 39's cry. If I marry Hans and have children. Right when I was thinking, I sent him down to the cellar to get beer. While he was opening the beer tap, the knife suddenly fell on his head, killing him." Hearing the story, the maid said, "Clever Else, this is so painful." Then he sat down next to Else, crying about that misfortune. Waiting for a while, without seeing the maid come up, the uncle told the boy, "Go down to the basement and see where Else and the maid are sitting." The guy went down to the basement and saw Else and the maid sitting next to each other and sobbing. He asked, "Else, why are you crying?" Else replied, "Can and number 39's cry. If I marry Hans and have children. Right when I was thinking, I sent him down to the cellar to get beer. While he was opening the beer tap, the knife suddenly fell on his head, killing him." Hearing the story, the resident said, "Clever Else, this is so painful." Then he sat down next to Else, crying about the misfortune. Upstairs, everyone sat waiting for the boy, but he didn't and hash 39's show up. The uncle told the aunt, "Go down to the basement to see where Else is sitting." The aunt went down to the basement and saw the three of them sitting and crying. She asked why they were crying. Else told her mother about the story of her child and number 39's death. While she was sitting and opening the beer tap, the knife fell from the wall. Head. Hearing the story, the mother said, "God, clever Else, this is so painful." Then the mother also sat down next to her and cried. The old man sat and waited for a while but did not see his wife come up. But he was thirsty, so he said, "Now I must go down to the cellar myself to see where else is sitting." Going down to the basement, the uncle saw everyone sitting and crying. He asked the reason and was told that Else and number 39's child died. While he was sitting and opening the beer tap, a knife fell on the wall and fell on his head. Hearing the story, the father said, "Clever Else, this is so painful." Uncle also sat down and cried. The future bridegroom waited forever but no one showed up. He thought, maybe everyone is down there waiting for me to come down. So let number 39's go down to the basement and see what everyone thinks. When he got there, he saw 5 people sitting and crying. They took turns screaming. He asks, "What number 39's going on?" Else replied, "Dear Hans, we got married and had a child. When he was a teenager, we sent him down to the cellar to get beer. While he was opening the beer tap, the knife suddenly fell on his head, killing him instantly. So why not cry?" Hans said, "That number 39's all, be as brave as the cunning Else. Well, let number 39's get married." He took her hand and organized the wedding. One day Hans said to his wife, "Honey, I have to go make money. You go to the fields and harvest rice to make cakes to eat." "Yes, dear Hans, I will." Hans had just left home. His wife was at home cooking porridge and taking the porridge with her to the fields. Once there, she asked herself, what to do now? Harvest rice or eat first? Let number 39's eat first. Else sat down to finish the pot of porridge. After finishing her meal, her stomach was full and she asked herself, what to do now? Harvest rice first or sleep first? Let number 39's sleep first. Then Else lay down in the rice field and fell asleep. Hans returned home a long time ago, but Else still hasn't and #39's returned. Hans said, "Else, my wife really works hard, but at this hour she still hasn't and #39's come home to eat." When darkness fell, Else was still in the field. Hans went to the fields to watch his wife harvest rice, but Else did not harvest rice but lay fast asleep in the rice fields. Hans quickly ran home and took a bird trap with a bell attached. He covered Else with a net. She was still sleeping without even realizing it. Hans went home, closed the door tightly and sat down to work. When it was late, Else mischievously woke up. When she stood up, she saw something strange and made a clanking sound again. She panicked, feeling doubtful, not knowing whether she was the cunning Else or not. She muttered, "I Don and number 39's understand if I am myself or not." She didn't and #39's know what to do anymore, just standing there hesitating. Finally she decided, I have to go home and ask, am I still me or not? Everyone knows that clearly. Arriving home, seeing the door tightly closed, Else knocked on the window and called inside. Hans, is Else in the house? Hans replied, yes, Else is in the house. Hearing that answer, she panicked and muttered, oh my God. It and number 39's not me. She went from house to house, but when she heard the bell ringing in the deserted night, no one opened the door. There was no place open for her to enter. She left the village. And no one saw her anymore. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.